Welcome. Wanted to come and do a quick webinar on summer safety tips. It's coming, it's just around the corner, the weather is warming, and we want to do our best to ensure that it's a great time for you and your dog. So on top of this webinar, follow us on our Instagram, TikTok, social media channels to ensure that you've got all the tips. And we've got some really exciting clinics coming up to ensure that it's a wonderful summer for you and your dogs. Summer with our dogs is great. We have the opportunity to enjoy longer days with them. We get them out more. We can enjoy nature for longer periods. We can do camping, road trips. We have all this time that we can celebrate the warmer months with our dogs. We really want to ensure that you can feel confident and safe and take your dog with you anywhere. And so training is a really important part of that. But we also need to be aware of certain risks to our dogs and everything we need to do to ensure that they're safe. So the summer is full of risks. I mean, any time of year really is, but the summer we see we can have poisonous plant life. The hot weather can be really challenging and pose a lot of safety risks to our dogs. They can become sick from the heat and it can be potentially fatal. As things warm up, our dogs have a hard time regulating themselves with that heat. And so we've got to ensure that we're keeping them safe. We're keeping them safe from poisonous plants. It's best to really understand everything that you have in your yard and ensure that you don't have anything that's poisonous to your dogs. You know, you're more likely to see ingesting and chewing and exploring from young dogs, but it doesn't mean that dogs of any age may ingest something. It may smell appealing to them. They may not be feeling well. They may be bored. They ingest something that could be potentially poisonous or fatal. So make sure you really understand what's in your yard. And then if you've got them out places, you're supervising them to ensure that if they do ingest something, you can identify it quickly and get your dog to the vet. The biggest risk, though, is ultimately the heat to our dogs. So we're going to cover some of that to ensure that they stay safe. Hot weather safety is critical this time of year. As I mentioned, dogs can't regulate their heat as well. They do some sweating through their pads, but that panting is really important. And it's what circulates the air and helps them cool down. But if they're stuck in hot heat, it's difficult for them to do that. And so it's really important that they've got regular access to water. You want to ensure that there's fresh water, whether you've got your dog outside, you're taking them out with you, or even within the household, make sure that they've got access to that water so they can keep themselves hydrated and cool. It's also important that you avoid strenuous exercise. If you do take your dogs out, take them out to the times of day where the sun's not as intense. So this is the morning, late evening. It's a great time to go out. You can enjoy sunset together. The weather's a little bit cooler and there's not as much risk with the sun. Be aware of activities like fetch, off-leash play, anything that involves a lot of physical exertion, that can be really dangerous to your dogs. And unfortunately, our dogs love that exercise, so they don't moderate themselves well. It's really common that they'll just continue until they suffer from that. And so we want to make sure that we're avoiding any of that strenuous exercise because they will do it. So don't take your dog out midday to play fetch. You know, it's best that you're avoiding the hot weather or the hot sun period of the days. And you can also look at doing things like indoor exercise or other activities. If I do take my dog out when it's hot out midday, I'll take them swimming instead. So this is a great way they can still get their exercise and stay cool. Be aware of hot pavement. A lot of people underestimate how hot the pavement can get. So if you take your dogs out for a walk in the neighborhood or you're walking somewhere where they're walking on potential asphalt or pavement, make sure that you're avoiding that again during those times where the sun is really intense. Go at cooler times of the day. Put your hand on. A good test is to put your hand on for 5 to 10 seconds. Hold your hand there and let the heat really sink into your hand. If you can't hold your hand there, it's too hot for our dog's paw pads. And so you want to avoid that. If you do need to take them out for any reason, you can get some great little summer booties just to protect their paws from that, because that burning can happen quite quickly. Never take your dog out in the vehicle or leave them unattended during the hot weather days. Too many people underestimate the impact of that sun. So it doesn't have to be an extremely hot day for the vehicle to heat up too much for your dog not to be able to cope. And we can see this often. People go, they leave the windows open just a bit. That little bit of cracked airflow isn't enough to help your dog regulate their temperatures and stay cool. You don't want to have your window open too much either, because you risk people coming by and just some safety concerns for your dogs. If you're going out somewhere and your dog can't come in places with you, it's best to leave them at home. Leave them at home, give them something to do. Don't leave them unattended in the vehicle anytime during the summer. Even early mornings, we can underestimate that power of the sun. And it's common, we think we're going to go in and out of somewhere quickly, but if you get tied up or anything, there's just too much risk to your dogs. So don't do it. Bug bites and sunburn can also be a concern to our dogs, and there's some really great products you can get to help with this. They're designed specifically for dogs or for pets, and you can do that to avoid mosquitoes. They can get really difficult or tough this time of year. Sunburn as well for some of our dogs are still at risk for that, so you can get some things to help with sunblock, and then speak with your vet about anything else that they might need. Water intoxication is a thing as well, and it's important to put this here because I mentioned swimming. People will go, their dog's in the water, they're playing fetch. If you have a dog that ingests large amounts of water, this can be really dangerous to them. So you want to be monitoring that, keep sessions short. If you have a dog that ingests water, maybe work on that, work with a trainer, or find ways to just limit that exercise to avoid this from happening. And grooming, it's also really important that you're keeping your dog well groomed. There's a lot of differences on opinion. Most people advise not shaving certain dogs, double coats down or anything, because you expose them and to the sun more, and they have a hard time. That fur can actually help them regulating their body temperature. And so, speak with your groomer, speak with your vet, see what they recommend, but it's important that you keep their hair at an appropriate length for them to help them stay cool in the summer and for their skin to stay safe. You also want to be prepared. So with summer coming, there's a few things you can do to help prepare you and your dog for the weather. Water, obviously. So make sure you've got some good containers that you can take with you. We've got collapsible water bowls that are wonderful. You can clip them onto things. We've got bottles that will keep the water nice and cool. Make sure that you've got this stuff so that you're not going out with your dog and you don't have water with you. It's really important that they have that access to water. There's some really great cooling products you can get too. You can get bandanas, vest, harnesses, mats, all of these things that help your dog stay cool. There's wonderful products, and we highly recommend taking them with you. If you're going camping, you're going out on hikes, you're going to be out in the backyard, you're going on a picnic, all of these things, it's really important that you've got some cooling products to help your dog. You want to make sure that your dog has access to shade or cool spots. So if you're going to spend time out in the backyard with them, make sure they've got some areas that they can get out of the sun. If you don't have that readily available in your yard, consider getting a large umbrella or something so that your dog can be out there, but not underneath that direct sun. Be aware of that when you're out camping and hiking and stuff as well. Give them periods, if you're out on a hike with them, give them periods where you just take some moments to rest in shady spots before you expose them for long periods within the sun. And then always speak to your vet. Speak to them. There's stuff we need to worry about: ticks, heartworm, various things if you're traveling with them, ways that you want to ensure that they're best prepared for the summer and that they're ready and they've got everything they need to keep them safe. It's also important that we understand the signs of stress or heat stroke. Signs of stress are things like panting, pacing, drooling, tail tucked, ears backed. Any of those things are important. That's a sign that your dog is uncomfortable in a situation, so we need to change it. I am going to go through the symptoms of heat stroke because it's really important for us to be able to identify these so we can help our dogs before it's too late. Some of the things you're going to look for when your dog may be suffering from heat stroke. Most commonly, we see heat stroke because someone goes out when it's too hot, plays fetch with their dog, gets them running, and their dog again has difficulty regulating. They love fetch, so they're going through and they're playing, and then suddenly they may collapse or they show visible signs of discomfort. This can be very hard on your dogs and even fatal. So it's important we do things that I've mentioned to avoid this, but it can happen quickly. So if your dog is rapidly panting, they're going to do this when they're hot, but it's going to be paired with some other things and they're going to seem like they're under stress as well. You may see red or pale gums, and their tongue is going to be bright red. So they have pink tongues normally. It's going to look a lot deeper red. So one thing to do that I would do right away is look at your dog's mouth. What color are their gums when they're normal, resting, and happy? What color is their tongue? This is an important thing to identify in your dog so that if there's some type of concern, you can easily recognize that something's off if their gums or their tongue look different. You can also have a dog that may suffer and be struggling with vomiting or diarrhea. So again, they're going to seem like they're in discomfort. They're running. If they suddenly vomit, that's a sign that they're feeling too hot, and we've got to immediately remove them from the heat and help them cool down. Having mentioned that, you want to make sure you don't cool them down by suddenly putting them in something really cold. You need to slowly bring their temperature down, and you don't want to add to that shock. And so start with some cooler water, but not cold water, or towels or something to help them cool. And if they've got excessive diarrhea as well, they're going to have thick, sticky saliva. So they're going to appear like they're dehydrated, and it's going to cause the sticky saliva that will be paired with that red or pale gums and bright red tongue. It's normal too that the dog is going to appear weak. We've seen dogs that kind of stagger. They can be dizzy. They seem lethargic. They're having a hard time moving around. This is a sign that they're suffering from some heat stroke. Dogs can have this at a very minor level too. So that's why it's important you're monitoring them and supervising them. If they're outside and you notice they seem a little down or extra hot, or they're seeming more lethargic, maybe bring them inside, move them to a cool area, make sure that they're drinking water, give them access to those cooling products. If you don't have a cooling product too, sometimes just wetting a t-shirt or a towel is a great way to provide them with some of that immediate relief. Your dogs may also be in shock, so they're going to seem a little confused, disoriented. And you may even have a dog that goes into coma. So we've seen dogs collapse with this, and it's important as soon as you recognize anything, and if your dog seems like they're under discomfort or they're not cooling down, take them to the vet immediately. It's not worth the risk. You're better to have them check, make sure that they're hydrated well and everything is okay. So I also wanted to speak about off-leash safety when we talk about summer, because this tends to be a time of year that we see more people take their dogs off-leash. And it's important, obviously, that you've got a solid recall with this. So if you're going to take your dogs to off-leash parks, if you want them to get out and enjoy their surroundings more, make sure that they've got that solid recall and practice this frequently. Make sure that you trust that your dog will come when called, and practice this in a variety of other environments. We've got some really great classes. We focus on this all the time, where we're focused on teaching them to run out of play even. So they can be in hard play. In day schooler classes, we call the dogs out of play. We take them out into the real world. We do a lot to really proof that up, to teach our dogs that no matter what's happening, we've got really good rewards and they do want to come to us. A long line as well. So this is a great option. If your dog doesn't have a great recall, if you're in areas that it's unsafe for them to be off leash or it's against the law, one thing you can do is, if you want to give them more freedom to explore, get that sniffing, enjoy it, is you can utilize it a long line. These can be great tools. What I usually recommend is taking it out, practicing it, in your backyard, getting used to it. Be aware if your dog gets really excited, just with handling with your hands with rope burn or anything. So sometimes what I've done is I've tied knots throughout. I always keep extra length behind me with where the dog is. The long line can just drag on the ground. If the dog runs off or anything, I can easily step down, slow them down, and use those knots versus my hands, which, if the dogs are taking off, can cause some immediate rope burn, which is not fun. Keep your dogs on leash while hiking too. We're already seeing this. I've seen multiple posts already this year of lost dogs that have been out hiking because people have taken them off leash, and just expect that the dogs are going to come back. There's wildlife. Not only is wildlife potentially dangerous to them, they can chase the wildlife and easily become lost. You just underestimate, it just takes a fraction of a second for us not to be actively supervising and our dogs to see something first and then be out of our sight. So you want to make sure, if you're out hiking, it is recommended and the law in most places that we keep our dogs on leash. So again, you can use things like a long line or that so they can explore more, but please keep your dogs on leash. Not only that, it's unfair to people that are going with their dogs, keeping them on leash and don't want to have another dog come up in their space. It can make them feel really uncomfortable, but they could safely and happily walk by if both dogs were on leash. So be a responsible canine parent and please keep your dogs on leash while hiking. It's important that you also have ID on your dog. So whenever you're out with them, make sure you've got some ID that won't easily rip off. Check to make sure that your dog's microchip is working. If you don't have one, it's a great option to have some ID on your dog, but you can also have tags or various things to make sure that they have ID with your phone number so that if they do get lost, they can easily be traced back to you. And then always supervise them. If you're out with them, if you're by water as well, make sure dogs, same thing, they have fun. So they just keep going and going, and they can sometimes drown from exhaustion. They just go underwater. They struggle getting back to shore. Be aware of places with rapid current as well. We'll use a long line for swimming often if we're at rivers, just to avoid dogs being swept off. Following ducks or something as well can be an issue. And just make sure that they're always supervised so that you can immediately help them if they're under any struggle. So your job is to really set them up for success. We want your dogs to enjoy summer with you, and we love it when the dogs can be included in the activity with the whole family. This includes camping, hiking, picnics, going to friends' houses, having people over, going to meet people on a patio for lunch or a drink, going to festivals, all these things that you can do with your dogs in the summer months. And in order for them to be able to enjoy it, that training really matters. So work with the trainer, get in some classes, get out and practice this. Don't just put them in these situations and expect them to be good with it. Make sure you're setting them up for success. So go out at quiet times, take them into urban areas, visit a patio, bring a blanket that you can teach them place on that they can lie down, show them what's expected of them. Make sure you teach them and show them what to do. And don't forget to reward all that good behavior. Anything you want to see more of, we're really good at ignoring it. So make sure you're rewarding that. They know what's expected so that they can really enjoy summer with you with much less frustration and stress on both sides. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at training@dogmatraining.com. Thank you.